This is the product backlog. Well, it's one form of a product backlog. I still like using a physical index card like this as a tool for describing and visualizing the product backlog. Now, if you prefer using electronic tools, that's fine as long as the product backlog is always made transparent to everyone in your organization. Everyone. The reason why I want to talk about the product backlog in today's video is because it is one of the elements in Scrum that can get easily misunderstood among Scrum practitioners. And quite often, this misunderstanding can lead to value delivery ineffectiveness. And because of that reason, folks, in today's video, we are going to bust 5 myths related to the product backlog. So I suggest buckle up because I will be back right after this one. The first misconception is that only the product owner who is responsible to refine or add more details onto each product backlog items. That's how I discovered many Scrum teams expect their product owner to be their personal secretary to detail every single item in the product backlog for them. As described in Scrum Guide, the product owner is accountable for effective product backlog management, but the product owner can delegate the responsibility in adding more details onto the product backlog items to the other Scrum team members. Now take notes how the Scrum Guide used the word accountable and responsible differently there. Another misconception in relation to this misconception is the developers in the Scrum team are only the software engineers. Now I have already made a video about who the developers in the Scrum team are. If you haven't watched that video, go check out that video on this channel. If you still have the perception that the developers in the Scrum team are only limited to the people who write software codes. The developers in the Scrum team may also include but not limited to the business analysts, quality engineers, solution architect, technical writers, UX designers, etc. Because they're part of the Scrum team, therefore they may also collaborate with the product owner to refine and add details onto the product backlog items. The second misconception is managing product backlog does not involve deleting items from the product backlog. There are several factors why certain product backlog items need to be deleted. It may be because of changes in the market or a change in the organization and the leadership structure, which may result in a change in the company's long-term strategy. The sprint review is one of the opportunities to gain feedback from the stakeholders whether certain items in the product backlog need to be deleted. Now, other than the sprint review, of course, as a self-managing team, the Scrum team can communicate with the stakeholders and get feedback from them at any time during the sprint regarding whether certain product backlog items need to be deleted. The third misconception about the product backlog is it only contains features that need to be developed by the developers. I see this misconception a lot in product development engagement that involves third-party suppliers. As written on Scrum Guide, the product backlog is an ordered list of what is needed to improve the product. This may include but not limited to the system architecture that the developers need to put in place, or even a list of experiments to validate any assumptions about certain functionalities that will be developed, or even defects the Scrum team needs to fix, or even technical improvements to be implemented for paying any technical debts in the product. As described in Scrum Guide, the product backlog is the single source of work undertaken by the Scrum team, hence is not only limited to features that the Scrum team will develop. Now let's move on to the fourth misconception. Because the product backlog does not only contain features that will be developed, it does not need to be written in user story format every single time. I have found that one of the reasons why some people assume that the product backlog items always need to be written in user story format is because the tools they're using give them such a perception. Another format beside the user story format is the job story format, which you can see on the screen right now. Another format, which is my favorite format, is the hypothesis format. And I've already made a video about the hypothesis format. Check out the video on this channel if you want to learn more about how to write your product backlog items in hypothesis format as an alternative to the user story format. Now we are on to the fifth and the last misconception related to the product backlog that I see quite often among Scrum practitioners. Some people still have the perception that only the product owner who is allowed to add items to the product backlog, while the developers need to ask permission from the product owner whenever they want to add items into the product backlog. Now, this is a misperception. Now, even though the product owner is accountable for effective product backlog management, it doesn't mean only the product owner who is allowed to add or delete items from the product backlog. Because there may be architecture and technical improvement related items, or research and experiments that the product owner may not have any expertise in, but those activities need to be added by the Scrum team into the product backlog. Not only the developers, even the stakeholders can add items into the product backlog, as long as the product owner is accountable for the value of the product. That's why it is important for everyone in the organization to live the Scrum values and not make the product backlog as a political tool. Alright, that is enough myth busting today, folks. And by the way, if people in your company want to learn how to use the product backlog to improve shared understanding and collaboration within the company, go check out a brand new course from scrum.org called the Professional Scrum Product Backlog Management Skills. From this video, I hope you already get the sense that managing the product backlog is the whole Scrum team responsibility. It's not only the product owner's job. Hence, the target audience for this training is not limited to only the product owner. In fact, I suggest bringing your whole Scrum team, including the engineers, designers, analysts, architects, or even the end user to this training to level up shared understanding in your company. I hope to see you in one of my sessions, folks, or else you can join any sessions facilitated by your friendly professional Scrum trainer in your neighborhood. Alright, folks, if you have any questions, just leave it in the comment section down below. I will talk to you again in my next video. Have a great week. Bye-bye.